Well, the answer is yes and no. Sure, the gods and goddesses, they are manifestations of the self. You can say archetypal manifestations of the self. This is quite easy actually to see also once we understand a little bit what the self is about. What it means to live from the self. Like if we are in this peace and bliss and this knowing of the self, then to be generous is very natural. So we can call that aspect, that manifestation, we call it Lakshmi in Hindu way, or Kamla, like we discussed. If we are in the peace and bliss and truth of the self, then whatever challenge comes to us, we will be courageous. We will have no problem finding courage inside. That is Hanuman. If we are living from the peace and love and all that of the self, and we encounter in ourselves, let's say, a little bit too much an addiction or a dependency on sugar or whatever it is, then very easily from that self, we are like Shiva, ascetic, independent of all that. So in this way I could go on, 330 million gods are there in India according to science. There are many ways in which the self manifests. And so in that way, these gods and goddesses, they all live inside of us. And it is up to us from the self to bring them forward. So sometimes we will be like Shiva, sometimes we will be like Lakshmi, sometimes we will be light, like Ganesha, which is another beautiful way. This lightheartedness that he has and that he shows then in all those stories about Ganesha. Sometimes, we will be fierce like Durga when we encounter anger and aggression, and so on and so on. So in that way, the answer is yes. In a different way, the answer is no, because we cannot limit it only to that. We cannot limit the understanding about the devata, the gods and goddesses, only to archetypes that are there, let's say, in our subconscious, or that are there in our behavior. They are more than that. They exist on some level also. And okay, that is something I cannot prove. But first of all, we also have to understand that the word gods and goddesses is our doing. This is not how originally these beings are named. They are named devata, which means divine being or divine energy. So the way it is then explained is that when from cosmic consciousness, from the pure self, the universe manifests, it does not manifest immediately in like earth and plants and animals and all these things that we see in the universe. It first manifests in a much more subtle way. That means that this great energy, from which everything comes forth, in manifestation brings out different forms. And these are these beings. And then further, from these beings, manifestation continues and always becomes from very subtle, more and more solid, until we reach the point where we are now, where the earth element is there, and where everything that we know is there. But these beings, these energies, they are still there. Now, we are the ones who name them. We are the ones who make stories about them. We are the ones who picture them and make Ganesha an elephant-headed god, and make Hanuman a monkey-headed god, and we make, Lakshmi a very beautiful woman, and Shiva very nice-looking but still very ascetic, little bit like punk type of yogi, So this is all our own doing. They don't look like that. They don't have a physical form. Not in the sense of, like having earth element, water element, fire element, air element, akash element. They purely exist in what is called Mahatattva, the element that is the origin of all elements. So, but there they exist, and there, on a level which is a little less subtle, but still a lot more subtle than where we are, there are many other beings also, somehow related to them. Like you can say, each has an army of spiritual beings that, let's say, do their work. And that is the essence of tantric practice. When we start doing a certain mantra that belongs to one of these energies, it is not, let's say, Shiva himself or Kali in person who will come and give us some image in our mind or in a different way support us in our practice. It is their helpers, it is these high spiritual beings, but not devata. They are called ganas actually, who are going to help us, who are going to answer our call, who are going to bring us further. So in that way, the gods and goddesses of Hinduism, they are illusions in their names and in their forms and in the stories and so on. That is all man-made. But their essence, their energy, it still exists. So, as I said, I cannot prove that to you. But in my experience, I feel that I have that proof because precisely that is how whatever I am doing works. Like in healing, I am very much related to Kali. So I am very aware that in healing, I'm actually not the one doing it. Somebody else comes and is doing it. And that somebody else is a spiritual being who is associated with the devata called Kali. So it's a little bit indirect, I would say, but for me that is the proof that this exists, because otherwise it could never work. There's no other explanation possible somehow.